Call meeting in order. Please join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Mock
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, community comment for anything not on the agenda. Does not look like we have anyone here tonight. I assume you're with the development?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we will move on past that. Presentations and reports. We have 5.1, the construction update. Jonathan Carver Parkway Improvement Project. Mr. Lennis or Mr. Schmidt?
Referring to Mr. Schmidt.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Mayor and Council, good evening. Tonight I'm going to run us through the construction updates from the various projects we have going on in town right now. So I'll do hit Jonathan Carver Parkway and then also the water system projects also.
Great.
So Jonathan Carver Parkway key updates. Lots has changed over the last week, as you've probably seen. The curb and gutter has now been installed. It's complete, going up from the roundabout all the way to the north end of the job on 212. So that was a big thing that happened in the last week. The elementary school entrance is currently being reconstructed as well. So half of that entrance is closed right now. The first half has been poured with concrete. They'll be doing the other pour to follow after the concrete has cured enough. But the big thing here is we're in the last month here of stage 2 for the full closure. The contractor is planning to have the east-west movement in the roundabout open by August 16th. So that's a big change that'll be forthcoming. So what that means is that the road, the through traffic north and south will still be closed, but anyone traveling east and west, 6th Street or Dahlgren Road will be able to use the regular roundabout at that time. So there won't be any temporary drive lane into the Carver Square businesses. They'll be able to use the regular entrance and all that. So that'll be a good day. We're getting closer to having this back to normal, so that'll be nice. And then obviously still the overarching goal for stage 2 is to be done by the end of the month before school starts. So everything at this point is pointing towards on schedule. So as long as nothing crazy happens with the weather here over the next few weeks, we should be good with that too. So and then paving is scheduled here in the areas that just got curb and gutter placed on it from the roundabout and then going north on those northbound lanes. That's planned to happen here over the next week or so. So there'll be a lot of asphalt going down on the highway here in short order. So obviously, everyone's seen this. We're in stage 2, as I just mentioned. Stage 3 begins in September, and that'll be a combination of lane shifts, and I think they're planning to do possibly a crossover south of the roundabout, put all traffic on what will be the new northbound lanes as they finish up some of the utility and street reconstruction down there. So they're thinking about doing a crossover to start stage 3, but the goal is obviously to have all traffic open by the end of the month. So here's just a few pictures. This is looking south towards Public Services in Carver Square as you start to go up the hill there. And then the picture on the right is the first half of the new concrete entrance at the school. So that'll be nice when that's all done. Any questions on Jonathan Carver before I move on?
I have a couple.
Yep.
Is the path going to get paved at the same time that the street's getting paved this week? Or so that was the next couple of weeks?
I'm not sure if they're going to focus on any trails at this point. Mainline paving is obviously the primary focus.
For sure.
So I'm not sure if trails will be, in the next week or so, but.
Okay. And then I also had a question. When you guys were talking to us months ago about the full closure, you mentioned that it was only going to be closed for 8 weeks as it pertains to the fire department for emergency access.
Mm-hmm.
Once this gets paved, are we close to the end of that time when the fire department will be able to go through there?
The fire department, you said they're gonna be closed for 8 weeks?
It was
Like
my
they're
understanding that they would be able to access the road. It would be open to them before it's open to the public for emergency.
Well,
Does that make
the
sense?
contractor's been working with the fire department on a daily basis
Yep.
just to get them access per se. So I would say when the roundabout is opened again, that's obviously gonna be full access, but I think, Chad could maybe speak to it, but he's just been working with, Callie and the rest of the fire department daily just to make sure they know how to get in and out.
Okay, but they won't be able to access Jonathan Carver Parkway until we're all driving our cars on it when the full closure is lifted.
We don't know.
Okay, okay,
I'm not sure.
okay,
The main thing is that we're working together and
Okay.
there's clear understanding of
perfect. Okay,
what's happening, so.
okay, thank you. My final
Yeah.
question is, everything by the elementary school, that entrance area that you highlighted, that the work that's being done this week or has been done recently, that'll be taken care of by the time school starts?
Yes. Yep.
Those are all my questions. Did you guys have any? All right, let's hear about our water treatment plant.
Okay, sounds good. So the water treatment plant, obviously, things have changed there a lot too. Building construction is in, high gear. You can see there's been walls that have started to go up now, and they're also working internal to the site, on site piping and internal process piping within the plant. So lots of stuff going on there. The well 5 project, so the actual drilling of the well to get the casing in, that's completed. They're currently working on the excavation under the, in the aquifer itself to open up the cavern for where we're gonna pump the water out of. So that's being done right now. And then a side note, which is pretty exciting, is we're actually looking at potentially being able to get another well on that site, which is really good news. So you may remember when we were originally siting well 5, the talks of like the Jordan aquifer, which is more of the higher production aquifer. It's actually a little bit shallower than the aquifer that we drilled into with well 5. But when we were drilling well 5, we found the Jordan aquifer also. So, based on the hydrogeology, it's you only have maps to go off of. Nobody really knows exactly where the aquifers start and stop. So, we're optimistic that we might have a chance of actually drilling a second well on that same site, which would be really good financially because we won't have to find another site, build another well house, so there could be some considerable savings if this is all to work out. So I don't want to get you too excited, but we're pretty excited that this could actually happen. So we're looking at it right now.
Question.
I have a question on that.
Yep.
What's the depth of the well we just drilled, and what's the depth of the Jordan aquifer?
The well we just drilled was about 450 feet deep. And the Jordan aquifer is in like the low 300s. But they're different aquifers, so there's a confining layer of rock. That's why it's called nested wells. So the deeper one, when you go through the Jordan, you have to seal that layer again so it doesn't drain the Jordan into the lower layer. So there'll still be a confining layer so they act independently of each other.
Or you had a
I had a question, yeah. If things turn out in our favor for a second well, if you can include in the next presentation or update, if it expands the timeline.
Expands the timeline.
Yeah, like if it just means, which
Yeah.
is, I think, a good thing, because
Mhm.
but just to know,
Sure.
how much longer would the project take? Would it extend the timeline?
Definitely. Yep. We can definitely talk about that. And just so everybody remembers, well 6 was something that we always knew would have to come towards the end of this whole expansion effort. You can't drill 2 wells at the same time. The DNR just doesn't let you do it. So you have to drill and develop 1 well, and then they have to see the data of what the well produces before you can go to the next one. So we always knew it would come later, but yeah, we can get specifics obviously on timing as it relates to the actual construction project.
And I'm sorry, this is a silly question, but can you remind me where well 5 is?
Well 5 is the one that's on the northwest corner of the Meridian Fields development. It's in a city-owned outlot.
Got it, okay.
It's just to the east of Old Town Road.
Okay.
The gravel road out there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Okay, and then just to wrap things up, the raw water main project, obviously all the pipe work is done now, so that's a huge step, and final restoration work is occurring now. All the hard surface paving and concrete work is done. We're working on just final sodding and seeding and just some minor punch list stuff, but that project is pretty much wrapped up. So if you, or one picture here, that's actually the well, or the water treatment plant site in the front here where we had put the water main through there. So as you can see, the trails are stored and the grasses or sod's been placed at the treatment plant. So they're working their way out and getting everything restored. Yep. Yep, so the one on the right was the existing hydrant for the water main that goes to the south, to Lions Park, to the wells down there, and the one on the left is the new hydrant for the line to the north.
Great.
Yep. And then, here's the walls, the concrete walls that are being poured at the treatment plant on the east side. And then just another picture of the well site. So that's all I had.
Very cool.
Aaron, do you want to mention the monitoring well that's going
Yeah. So we're looking at doing a monitoring well. This is a DNR requirement as well. It's just a 2-inch piezometer that goes into the Fig aquifer, which is the aquifer that well 5, well 4, well 2, right?
2 and 3.
Yeah, so most of our wells are in the Fig. So the DNR, one of the newer requirements is we need to put a monitoring well in, it's called, and that is to monitor the level of water in that aquifer. So basically, when we're pumping a lot of water out of it, they want to know how the aquifer is reacting, if it's rebounding, if it's drying down and not recovering, if it's a dry year or something. So we're working on that as well. That has to be kind of centrally located around all of the wells that pertain to that aquifer. So we're actually looking at the area by the Spring Creek lift station, it's called. So that's, how would I describe that? Well, it's right off of Spring Creek Drive and just north of Sugar Maple, is it?
It's at the top of Snake Trail, basically.
So there's a lift station in there. So Chad obviously has to access that regularly anyway. So it's a good spot to also put this monitoring well, so he can use it as he needs it. So we're working through that with the DNR right now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, Council? All right. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right, moving on. We have no public hearings this evening. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A motion by Councilmember Mock. And I'll make the second. A second by Mayor Johnson. All those in favor, or any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, moving on to business items. 8.1, the 2021C bond refunding. Mr. Steinman, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
Evening.
I'm doing well, yeah. No, that's not what I intended. No jokes.
Come on.
Seriously.
So I'll be working from the pages that are in your agenda. There's a memo, a short memo that I wrote, and then some details in our pre-sale summary report that I'll go over for you. These bonds that you're considering refunding are your 2011A bonds. They're called a current refunding. That's because they're currently callable. The date that they're callable is 2/1/21, but they can be refunded as a current refunding anytime within 90 days of that date. So we're aiming for closing after 11/1 of this year. I'm sorry, I have my years mixed up. They're already callable, 2/1/21. So we're in the callable territory. Sorry about that. They have a par amount of $1,440,000. And we're only doing this refunding, or we're only proposing to do this refunding for savings. And the savings numbers that we're estimating at this point are your future value savings of about $162,000 and present value savings of about $152,000. Those savings numbers are net of all of your costs of issuance. And then one other item that I don't want to get too much in the weeds on, but there is a decision point here, and we're recommending proceeding with non-bank qualified bonds. So, if you spent some time talking about nested wells, you can learn now about bank qualified bonds. So, bank qualified is a designation that you can have on up to $10 million of bonds that you offer each year. You're technically over that, but there's a part of you can issue bank qualified bonds for these. So all it means is that banks are more incentivized to bid on your offering because banks can actually deduct the interest earned on your bonds as a business expense. Anyway, it creates more interest in your offering, more people bid on your offer, and the more folks that are competitively bidding on your offer betters your interest rate. Increases the price of the bonds, interest rate goes down. Price and interest rate work inversely for you, the issuer. So if these were bank qualified bonds and banks were able to bid, we would estimate you might have additional savings of $5,000 to $10,000, but it's difficult to estimate that. But that's our estimation at this point. But in order to get there, you would have to put cash into this deal up front of somewhere around $52,000. The difference between the actual bonds that are outstanding and your costs of issuance, that's basically your costs of issuance. My recommendation is that we proceed with non-bank qualified bonds. Then we aren't trying to come up with that cash at the time of the sale. And we do think that your estimate of savings is already probably better than what we have here because of the market changes over the last week and a half. So that's our recommendation. And I can take questions, of course, on the BQ versus non-BQ if you wish. And just a couple more things, and then I'm happy to take questions. We'll have a rating call on the 24th of August, we schedule it for the week of August 23rd already for your staff team. The sale is on the 7th of September at 10, at 11:30, and I'll come back at 7 that evening to present the award. Your current rating is AA. And I'm just moving down the pages through the staff report. There's a table in the report that's in your agenda that has a whole bunch of squiggly lines on it, black and green, and that answers any questions that you might have about is the market good. The black line is the most comparative line that you would look at to make that determination, and you can see. Way back in 2018, there's a peak that rates were just under 4.5% for general obligation bonds of this rating, and today we're somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2%, which is again part of the reason why we're making a refunding decision for savings. Good rates. We aren't extending the term of these bonds. We aren't defeasing any maturities or anything along those lines. We're simply doing this for savings. Then, and the other table just describes those savings. Again, your future value savings of about $165,000 and present value savings of $152,000 estimated, and that's net of all costs of issuance. And the resolution is attached to your agenda items, and I'm happy to take questions.
Questions? Joy, you look like you're ready.
Well, so I know prior to the meeting, we kind of discussed this because I was trying to think of this in the terms of like refinancing my mortgage, right? Because I think somewhat similar in what we're trying to do here and to save some money because of the lower interest rates. So just in that sort of framework, we're refinancing this older bond, getting a better rate. We're not extending the terms, but we're getting a better rate, and that's really what our savings is coming from.
It's all interest rate savings, yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
I'm good.
Thank you. I'm laughing only because that's the exact same way I was trying to think.
Paul, this came up at a previous council meeting. Can you describe for the council the term callable as it relates to the bond issuance, that there's only certain times that you can refinance and what goes into those decisions, et cetera?
I sure can. So as I mistakenly tried to explain earlier about the call date on these bonds were callable anytime after 2/1/21 this year, which means in a bond issue, that's really the first opportunity that you have to refund or refinance. You can't do much before then. We have advance refunded bonds here before, so I shouldn't say you can't do much before that. You can refund bonds in advance of the call date, but it's a different type of refunding. And these bonds are callable now, so you have lots of options with refundings too. You can restructure at that time. You can push all your savings into 1 year and pay off the last year. So there's a variety of things that you can do at the call date in bonds, depending upon how much money you have, what your restructuring needs are. In this case, we structured this refunding for level annual savings. So it's simply yearly savings, the term stays the same. So that's and these bonds too have a call date on them, the refunding bonds of 20/1/2031. So for all of you that will still be here, we'll be back.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at the table on page 3 of 17. So the estimated net future, estimated net present value. So is that saying that our savings, the present would be the 152? Is the future an additional 165, or is that an upside where it could be up to 165?
So it's not an additional or the other, the upside. The future value savings is just when you add up all of the annual savings, you just add it up and the total is at the bottom. That's your total savings by the time we get to the end, when the bonds mature, future value.
Okay.
We finance people tend to talk in what does that mean in today's dollars? Because $165,000 20 years from now is different than what it is today.
Got it. Okay.
And today it's worth 152. But cash flow savings, cash flow wise, that's a real number, 165,000, about 13,000 a year. I think it averages out to be.
Okay.
So,
Right.
does that make sense?
Yes, thanks for clarifying that.
Questions? Glenn shaking his head no. All right. I do not have any questions. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 131-21, providing for the competitive negotiated sale of $1,440,000 general obligation improvement refunding bond, Series 2021C.
We have a motion by Councilmember McKnight
I'll make a second.
and a second by Councilmember Sarah. Were you trying to say anything? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a month.
1 month, you bet.
All right. 8.2, the Timber Creek Development Project. Ms. Smith.
Can we have the screens flipped? I'm plugged in, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have 2 requests related to the Timber Creek development. The first is a rezoning request. Second is Phase 1 final plat. I'll go into detail on both. So Timber Creek, I think we're all pretty familiar with the project at this point, just working through some approvals with the City Council. The project is directly west of Carver Elementary, south of Monroe Drive, generally north of the Copper Hills development, and newly annexed property is now our westerlymost property line. So the location of Timber Creek is on the screen here. In total, there will be several phases for the development. Right now, we're just considering Phase 1. So the project is anticipated right now in 3 to 4 phases. Right now, it's just Phase 1. So we'll talk in detail about that as well. So why a rezoning request? What does this mean? What are next steps? So anytime property is annexed into the city of Carver, like this property was recently for Timber Creek, the default zoning is agriculture. So obviously, the proposed project meeting a residential use has a rezoning request. The request tonight is to go to a zoning of R2 with a PRD overlay. So what that means is a residential to planned residential development overlay. So what that means is that they're requesting R2 for the entire project, but there are some conditions that they're able to meet that require a PRD or some changes in the zoning ordinance. So talking through those, R2 is traditionally a single family zoning district, so the PRD in this case allows for townhome development. You'll see in a couple slides later there are 74 townhomes that are considered for Phase 1 for development, so the PRD is specific to allowing for single family and townhome use. In the ordinance, there is also a request for a reduction of lot sizes. So if you think about R2, the entire project will be zoned R2, and the minimum lot size for that district is 7,000 square feet. Obviously not super conducive for townhomes. So there is a request for a reduction of lot size in the PRD. There's also a side yard setback to property line request to go down to 5 feet. Typical in R2 is 7.5 feet. I have a graphic on the next slide that will be helpful. When you're thinking about those townhomes, it gets a little bit scary if you think that the buildings are going to be 5 feet on both sides, 10 total. In the PRD, the distance between buildings will always be 20 feet. So it's just a property line request, not a building distance request. The final step of a rezoning process, nothing glamorous, but it's required to run in the newspaper as a final step for full codification. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, here are the typical lots for the townhome as well as the single family. So again, the mix asking for that PRD. So the first is the townhome. You'll see the basic layout for what it will look like. This is where the lot reduction comes in. So for it to hit just R2, each of those lots would need to be 7,000 square feet. Again, not conducive to townhome development. The townhome lot sizes are roughly 1,875 square feet to 2,250 square feet. You'll also see on the slide here is that distance from the foundation to the property line. That doesn't mean that there's a building directly next to that property line. The buildings, again, 20 feet apart, but there is an ask for that foundation to property line to be reduced to 5 feet. Typical setbacks for the R2 zoning district for the single family lots. The front yard setback is 25 feet, sides are 7.5, rear is 20. So the rezoning request is for the entire property to go to that R2 zoning district, but it needs that PRD to allow for the townhome development. So that's step 1 of the request tonight, is the rezoning request. Here are some details from the preliminary plat that we saw, some things highlighted in red that I'll ask you to think about that we talk about here pretty often. Proposed zoning, again, is that PRD. Something that's exciting and something we've been working really hard on this project is there is a pretty extensive area of open space on this project. So we know about the ravine, we know about that trail system we're looking to build, some things we can utilize as a city to grow our trail and park system. The development summary shows the entire total lots. So tonight again is just phase 1, which is 74 of the townhomes and 49 single family. So that 348 might feel a little bit woozy of we're already approving that many, but we are not. It's just the 74 townhomes, 49 single family. And something else that I'm going to continue bringing up so we can all get really comfortable with it is the units per acre that's required by Met Council. So we, across the city of Carver, we need to hit that 3 units per acre to meet the Met Council requirement. It's gets a little bit tricky in some of these projects. You think 348 units, how are we not hitting that density? It's based on lot sizes, and then the townhomes are able to bring that density back up. So some of the homes will have larger lots. We need those townhomes essentially to supplement the distance in the density there. Something to note, R2 is a really popular zoning district. Something that I've thought a lot about as we're considering revising the zoning district is that most of our residential projects hit that. So projects recently, Meridian Fields, Oak Tree, Hawthorne Ridge, all have requested that R2 zoning district. And then some neighborhoods that were developed previously, Spring Creek and Copper Hills, are 2 good examples that operate with that R2 zoning district today. So that's an overview of rezoning. What is the final plat? What does that mean? Where does that put us in the review process? So final plat is the final step of review for Planning Commission and City Council. Generally, in Carver at least, we like to say there's little deviation from preliminary plat. Between concept plan and preliminary plat is when staff puts in a lot of our legwork to get things looking and feeling like we think they will when the project is completed. Once the council reviews the final plat, staff and the development team begin work on the developer's agreement, which we've talked about collectively as a group. What a development agreement essentially does is it sets the rules for the development. Who does what? What's the expectation? What happens if these things do not match the plans? So it covers things like city fees. Park dedication is one of those. It's written into the DA to say, you owe us X amount of dollars for park dedication. Construction expectations, so we set some timelines to say Monroe Drive needs to be constructed by X date. If it's not there, we're able to step in and start a process of getting Monroe Drive constructed. Warranties, so every time a project is completed, we enter a warranty period. So if trees die, we can go back and say to developer X, Y, and Z, these trees died, you need to replace them while we're still in warranty. I put in here that it covers almost every situation that could possibly happen. Obviously, Clarissa's heart might be fluttering, or his tummy, as Larry would have said. We try to cover as much as we can, but there occasionally can be some of those strange things that we don't anticipate. Typically, at that point, we're able to work with the developer under the guise of the DA and come to a resolution. Something to note, Timber Creek has applied for a grading agreement, and we've executed that. So if any work was completed out at Timber Creek and you saw it today, and it made you feel a little antsy of, wait, we're approving that tonight, what happened? They began work under a grading agreement. So those are permitted to be executed after preliminary plat, and they're able to do mass grading. So nothing drilling down to utilities, but they can do mass grading of the site. I think they started work maybe today, if everything went really well. Once the developer's agreement is signed, work can begin in earnest. So we set, in the DA, we talk about a model home. When can a model home go up? What condition do streets need to be in before the rest of the project can really take off? So all of that happens after the final plat approval by the City Council. So on the screen now, outlined in red, is the Phase 1 final plat. I've joked that this looks like a pork chop or the state of Oklahoma. You can take your pick. Kind of an odd extension. The reason for that odd extension is the construction of Monroe Drive. So Monroe has been something we've been working on since the United Properties piece where the Quick Trip is, and Meridian Fields with the D.R. Horton project. Monroe Drive serves as a collector. Monroe construction is also required for the preserve, which is the property north. So the timing of Monroe Drive is really important. Boring. So Monroe. So Monroe Drive will be required to be constructed to the westerly property line with Phase 1. What this allows us to do is continue work north on the preserve. The Timber Creek team and the preserve have signed easement agreements that allows for the street to essentially split both properties, so all of that checks out. That was one of our big concerns with concept is where does Monroe fall? How does this relationship happen? And we've gotten to the point now where the agreements have been signed and Monroe is anticipated to split both properties, and we have everything lined up that works. So here's the technical final plat document. It's recorded at the county. It essentially sets the framework for where the lots will be moving forward with construction. So again, Monroe Drive, something we talk about often. If you've been out there recently going to Quick Trip, you'll hopefully start to feel like it feels like a Carver street. So it mirrors some of the improvements like on Levi Griffin. We'll mirror some projects that we're doing on Jonathan Carver Parkway. So we'll have medians with the river rock running through it with plantings. And then we are hoping to maintain Monroe as a little bit of parkway. So there's extensive landscaping on both sides of the street to allow for that feeling of more than just a collector, a parkway that says, I'm in Carver, I recognize these things. It becomes a piece of wayfinding and placemaking. So thinking through Monroe, again, it's a collector, so no driveways will be coming off it. That's something that's really important to remember, is that Monroe serves a purpose to move traffic quickly and efficiently. Doesn't have to compete with things like driveways. So if you think about Monroe Drive as kind of the top of the project, Ironwood Drive is another collector that feeds directly into this project. So as constructed today, the turn lane going into Carver Elementary on Ironwood would not accommodate future school traffic, thinking about all the development we have west. So Ironwood is sometimes a hot topic, thinking about morning traffic and afternoon traffic. So as part of this project, there will be some improvements to Ironwood Drive that will allow traffic to function better in that area. It's also important due to proximity to Ironwood Park. I'll talk a little bit about that, some of the additional parkland that we're getting. And the improvements to Ironwood will allow it to function for development moving west. So we've taken into consideration everything moving west that will funnel through on Ironwood and Monroe as major collectors. So again, an overview of that project, I mentioned Monroe, which is the main collector north, and Ironwood, which is obviously right next to Carver Elementary and near the potential park. So talking about park improvements, I'm not going to ask this group to comment directly on what the Parks Commission is working on right now, but we had a kickoff recently with that group to talk about improvements in that park that we would like to see. So with this project, with the Timber Creek project, the city gets an additional roughly 3 to 3.5 acres of park adjacent to Ironwood, so it will be one large continuous park, something that we've talked about a lot in the past but is now coming to fruition. So the Parks Commission is tasked right now with programming, so thinking about what park uses would be helpful for the community and also people in this general area coming into town. So we're anticipating work to continue this fall with that group, hopefully for park construction in 2022. So phasing in, the preliminary plat came in at 4 phases. I think Lennar is thinking it might be 3 if the market demands are higher than what they're at right now. So phase 1 is generally outlined in orange, hasn't changed since preliminary plat. A total of 123 homes, those 74 townhomes will all come in at once for construction, and 49 single-family homes. So not a change from preliminary plat, and the additional lots will be phased accordingly. So if you think about final plat being the final phase, you're done with phase 1 of the final plat. You'll likely see 2 to 3 additional requests for final plat approval as the project starts and continues. Some examples of what the Lennar product will look like in Timber Creek. So the new product coming to town is the townhome on the lower left, and then some examples of other homes throughout the rest of the slide. So generally we'll conform with some of the looks of the homes that are being constructed in Oak Tree. So a continuation of that project into Timber Creek. John Bender is here with Westwood. He's one of the project engineers for comments, questions. Otherwise, I'll open it up to the group.
All right, comments, questions? Go ahead.
Okay. One question right off the bat. R2 is always a 5-foot setback. Is that part of that?
So R2 is 7.5. This request is for the 5
This
for the
for the 5.
townhome. Yep,
And it's just for the townhome?
correct.
Okay, so then
go ahead.
Oh, the rest of the single family is gonna be at 7.5?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I
And
was
that's
getting little
that's a
nervous.
really good question. The villa product that we've been seeing in Spring Creek, Oak Tree, those are the two that I can think of off the top of my head. Those villas requested a 5-foot setback for their single family. That's not a request for this project.
Okay. So when we're looking at the density per acre that's required by the Met Council, am I wrong in thinking that it was our housing stock as a whole that we had to meet a certain number, and it's not per development?
Sure.
Correct?
So every year we participate in a program called Plats and Monitoring, where we have to submit everything that comes in each year. So for like 2018, that was the year we had Meridian Fields, we had Hawthorne Ridge. It was a wild year. So for 2021, we'll have likely Timber Creek and the Preserve, and those two projects collectively will need to average 3 units per acre. So it makes that really easy if a project comes in at 3 or above. If it comes in below, we have to make up some ground, which is tricky, to be super honest, to say we need to meet a higher density requirement. So to have a project meet or exceed the density makes my life a lot easier.
Sure. So when we do this with the Met Council, though, are they only accounting for the new developments, or is it Carver as a whole, including our previous developments, to give us that 3.1? Because what I'd like to know is, are we over that amount now, so that, let's say another development were to come in, we could have a few larger lots or something like that?
So it's per year they look at it. So our existing housing stock is not accounted in that calculation.
It's just that year's development.
Right.
Okay. And so overall, this year, where would you say we?
So Timber Creek will be the first project that we plat in
Okay.
2021. So hitting that 3.1 is a great place to start.
Okay. I had a question. We're talking about Ironwood being a collector and not having driveways. Am I wrong in seeing farther down that we have homes that are going to have driveways on Ironwood?
Yeah, so we've had that conversation.
What is this? 13. Okay. Yeah, there it is, up in the corner.
So having Ironwood and Monroe as close together as they are to limit the ability to have driveways on both would be really challenging just for a developer to make a project work. So you'll see areas like Ironwood, the high traffic areas, we've maintained no driveways to be able to get people in and out of those high traffic areas quickly. Boulder Way is another good example of that, where we've seen a couple configurations in this project of potentially having townhomes front Boulder, but it got really tricky with people coming off Monroe quickly. So generally, we like to keep the number of driveways on a collector limited. In this situation with Ironwood, the fact that it ends shortly after made it an easier exchange for us to be able to say, there's a stretch that has driveways, but it's not a heavily trafficked area because it ends. Where Monroe is anticipated to go to our westerly city limits at 40 someday. So that's a street that needs to be able to function at a high capacity, where Ironwood dead ends in that location. So it became less of a moving traffic quickly and potentially being able to develop that area.
Okay, that makes sense. My other one, are the names on the roads set in stone at this point?
If you have changes, we could definitely talk about them.
Okay. This is a little bit detailed, fussy, but Boulder Way, we don't live in Colorado. I don't know.
Oh, that
Are
one's
there-
already set. That's a Copper Hill Street.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
I don't like it. I'll just say for the record, I don't like it.
It's been in Carver for a bit.
Let's see here. Then I was looking, sorry, I can't find the exact page here really fast, so it shows me the names really easily.
Prospect, Gable, Dogwood, Monroe.
So how are we, what I'd like to see, maybe, if it's appropriate, the names work, is that maybe we do a little more to, I guess, honor who might have had the land before, if there's any sort of historical something that might go along with it. I feel like some of these names are just sort of really arbitrarily just picked out of the sky, and they don't have any meaning behind them. So besides Boulder, which is apparently too late anyways, I guess just for the future ones, if we could maybe keep an eye on that.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right. Glenn, anything from you?
Okay, so I know, okay, so quick clarification. So the R2 is for the entire set of plat, the
It
whole
is.
development.
Yes.
So that'll be consistent then for all the remaining single-family homes that'll be built in the future phases. Okay,
So the rezoning request will just happen once, where final
Once.
plat will have
Okay.
happen several times.
got it. Okay, so I know, we've had several discussions and seen concepts about the expansion of Ironwood Park with the adjacent townhomes. And my only thought when I was looking at the landscaping plan, because there's an incredible amount of effort put into landscaping here. I really like what you've done with Ironwood and with Monroe. The thing that struck me, and I know we don't have all the future of Ironwood Park nailed down, but I was looking at the lack of landscaping against the town, between the townhomes and the park. And I know, if it were single-family homes, it would be up to that homeowner to say, oh, I don't want to see the park, I want some berming, I want to put shrubs up or whatever, but this is townhomes, they can't plant that, right? It's got to come with the development. So I don't know if we've thought about sort of the interaction between those two pieces of property. I'm okay if we consider it on the park side. I don't know.
Sure. So I would say if there's like lighting in the parking lot, I think we could definitely screen.
Okay.
I'll also say I think that a backyard as a park is a pretty good amenity.
Oh, for sure.
That would help market these. So I would be a little apprehensive to do a full line
Yeah.
of hedges. But I think just anecdotally with the Parks Commission, they've talked a lot about having large shade trees.
Okay.
So I think there will be landscaping
Okay.
throughout. But I don't want to commit right now that will be a line of trees that will offer full
Yeah,
screening.
I'm not necessarily saying that we should. It just struck me, and
Sure.
I was like, I know we're still trying to concept, and especially if we have lighting.
Yes.
Then as long as we consider that.
Joy, I agree with you a little bit because there's a little bit of that visual property line then also.
Yeah.
So that you can visually see where the property line is for the townhomes as compared to the park. May or may not be a huge deal, but it would give that visual effect to
Visual,
it.
yeah. Okay.
And I think as we learn more about the park, we've talked a little bit too that there might be a berm between the two if
Okay.
water needs to move on the site. So something
Okay.
we can keep in mind with the Parks Commission.
Good enough. Thank you.
Laura? No questions. All right. The only question that I have, and it might be more for you, John, so come on up and make yourself at home. And it's just super minor and relatively easy, but the pork chop or the state of Oklahoma has a couple of bump outs or growths on it, and I assume that that's because you have different products that you want to get a couple of models up for. Are there?
John, do you mind introducing yourself quick?
Yes, yep. I'm John Bender with Westwood. I'm the project manager, civil engineer I'm consulting for Lennar. So generally what we try to do when we build a road is we want to double load it so that, we're deferring that cost over as many lots as we can. So for example, where Ironwood is extending, kind of halfway through, we're including those lots on the south side, that frontage.
Okay.
Ironwood, so that's why that kick out is there.
Got it. Okay.
And similar for, I believe it's
Fulton.
yeah.
Okay.
The lots north aren't included because they're not fronting to Fulton. That's why there's not a kind of consistent, why we have that kind of weird bump out.
Okay. It's not a different product. It's the townhouses and then the single family.
Right. So Lennar has a wide variety of home types that they're going to be mixing in, but it's not necessarily, each pod isn't necessarily a certain house type.
Okay.
They're pretty consistent as far as lot widths and the house availability that's in each lot.
Okay. And then the only other question that I had, which I added one on, I might have said I only had one question.
Oh, that's
sorry.
all right.
And all of the examples that Aaron showed, with the exception of the townhomes, they showed 3-car garages. Is that everything's going to have a 3-car garage?
Generally, yes.
Okay.
Lennar does have an option for people who really just want 2-car to maybe save on some money, but
Okay.
generally speaking, yeah, they'll almost all be 3-car garages.
Okay. That's it for me. Any other questions?
Nope.
If not, I would entertain a motion for, let's work on the, rezoning first.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 05-2021, rezoning property for development of Timber Creek.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes for the rezoning, and now we need to approve the final plat. So I entertain a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 130-21, approving final plat for U.S. Home Corporation for the development known as Timber Creek First Edition.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes.
Thank you. I appreciate
you.
it.
All right, looks like we are down to communications. Mr. Mayor, you want to go first? Nothing. Okay.
I don't have anything.
Joy. Okay, Lori.
Just that the Parks Commission meeting has been rescheduled for later in August, so it'll be on Monday, August 23rd.
Okay. Christy? Mr. Henry? Okay. Sorry, Glenn, it's not funny. I have a couple of things. Let me find my notes. Oh, shoot.
Oh, I have one.
Go.
Sorry. Chad, this is for you. We've had a little bit of brown water in the downtown area. I know I've been talking to a couple of my neighbors and myself as well over the last maybe 2 weeks. Have you figured out what's happening?
We're assuming that a contractor pulled off of a hydrant. We've done some spot flushing in town, but that's our estimated or best educated guess for
Okay, okay. Have you had any more complaints this week?
now. No.
I suppose it's Monday, so today? Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, I have 3 quick updates. Tuesday, we had a Carver County Leaders meeting, and as I think a lot of you guys know, I have anti-camp, but the Carver County Parks presentation was so interesting that not one, but both of my nephews sat next to me and really enjoyed hearing about the parks in a weird way. So that was good. Let's see, congratulations to the Sandbergs. Deputy Katie Sandberg welcomed Maisie Quinn last July 29th, last Thursday. So she's adorable if you haven't seen pictures yet. And then condolences to Kathy Elke on the loss of her mother. That is all that I have. If we don't have anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Councilmember McKnight
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion? We don't have to do that though. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we are adjourned. Have a good night.